Today's Sunshine Note is titled, Were You There? Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Luke chapter 23, verse 34. Torn and bruised, covered in his own blood, and barely able to walk, Jesus struggled to make his way through the jeering crowds bearing that heavy crossbeam on his back. He had just endured the worst night of his life, begging God not to make him do this. Then he was arrested. All his closest friends deserted or betrayed him. He spent the wee hours of the morning in ridiculous mock trials, enduring lies, insults, and ridicule, and was beaten, bloodied, and tormented. The same people who had cheered for him days before when he rode into town on a donkey, now seethed in anger, shouted for his death. They chose a criminal, a murderer, to release instead of him. He recognized a former friend, Satan himself, in the crowd, stirring up the mob, his demons shouting wildly, fanning the flames of hatred against Jesus. Now he was about to die. His carpenter's hands, which had created and blessed, soon would be roughly spread out on splintered wood. Nails would be driven directly into the soft flesh of his wrist and ankles. As he endured unbearable pain, soldiers would casually gamble for his clothes. Naked, cold, and seemingly abandoned by God himself, he could see that his life would end. But he wasn't thinking of himself that day. Even as he dragged that cross through the streets and women followed crying, he reached out to them, trying to tell them not to cry for him, but rather to cry for themselves because of what would soon happen to Jerusalem. Suspended from nails, pained by every breath, he granted immediate salvation to the thief beside him simply because he asked. Looking down on the crowd below, he saw his own mother, the woman who had taught him how to walk, talk, dress himself, and he made arrangements for John to care for her now. Even as the Roman soldiers were crucifying him, he prayed that God would forgive their ignorance. He thought of people that day. He thought of you and me. In his last moments, he loved us. The character of God was never more real than in those hours of Jesus' arrest, trial, and crucifixion. He's not harsh or angry or bitter. He is loving. Through and through, every action, every thought, even during the worst pain imaginable, was love. If you're having a hard time feeling the love of God, go back to the closing scenes of Jesus' life and realize it was all for you. May God bless you today.